I thought FluxPose would hit their Kickstarter goal within 24 hours. They actually hit it in like 4 minutes, and then went on to hit all of their stretch goals within the hour. That is crazy. I've seen a lot of questions that I didn't really answer in my original video, and a bit of skepticism surrounding certain features too. In a way, this video is a follow-up to my original one, so if you haven't seen that yet, you should probably go watch it first. First of all, I'm not being paid to talk about FluxPose like some people think I am. The only thing of value I received was the review kit. As far as I'm aware, no one who has a review kit is even obligated to make a video on it. I have a positive opinion of FluxPose because it works well. Crazy how that goes. Why is there not a mount for Headset X? I don't know. I'm not the developers, so I don't know what went into choosing which headsets are getting official mounts. Now, I have gone through and calibrated a mount for my XR Elite just to see what it's like. First thing you should probably do, and don't ask me how I know, is measure the amount of interference at a given spot where you'd like to put a mount before actually making the mount. After that, you can start calibrating. Unfortunately, to calibrate a mount, it does need to read tracking data from the headset, so that means you do need that headset in hand to make a mount for it. I wouldn't say it's hard to make one, it's just extremely annoying. It basically just involves moving your head around extremely slowly. I had to remake my mount a few times, but once I actually had a good one, it took me about an hour to get a good calibration. Again, very annoying, but I think that anyone who's competent enough to make the mount in the first place is gonna be able to figure out how to get a good calibration on one. Besides, most popular headsets will just have mounts pre-made, so you most likely won't need to deal with this at all. So then how do the mounts actually attach to your headset? As far as I'm aware, all of the official ones just use double-sided tape. I've had to take a mount off to switch it out for a different one, and it took a lot of effort, so I don't think you're gonna have to worry about these things falling off on their own. I also didn't notice any residue left behind, but the mount wasn't on for that long. For my custom mount, I decided to go with a way that doesn't use adhesive, so that's an option too if you'd like to deal with that. Some people wanted to know how much of a difference having more trackers makes. If you're familiar with something like Slime VR, you'd know that you need at least 5 to get any tracking at all. FluxPose is not like that. It's like Vive trackers, where you could literally just use like a single one if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would though. As such, tracking is fine if you're just wearing 3. Most people who have Vive trackers just use 3, one on each of their feet and one on their waist. This is because 3 trackers does a really good job at capturing the majority of motions without costing an ungodly amount of money. The name Light Kit does kinda make it seem like you're missing out on something, but you really aren't. I personally would have called it the standard kit because it's the standard amount of trackers to get pretty good tracking with most other comparable systems. I usually just wear 3 trackers when I'm hopping on VR. Don't get me wrong, having extra points on your elbows, knees, or chest does make a difference, but it's really not as big as you'd think it would be. Elbows definitely make the biggest difference since they're no longer linked to your controllers and actually move in the way you would expect them to. Chest tracking makes twisting look better and also apparently makes it easier to shake your ass. Most people don't need it. In my opinion, knees are the most useless. They can sometimes help with some like very edge case sitting and laying down stuff, but in general, most games IK systems handle the lower body really well with just the feet and waist tracker. If this is your first time getting full body tracking, then just go for the Light Kit. If you're someone on a different positional system using 3-point tracking and you're happy with the quality but still want to get FluxPose, then get the Light Kit. Most people will not need anything more than the Light Kit. The more trackers you have to put on, the more annoying it is to get into VR. I really just don't think the benefits are worth it for most people, considering what most of y'all are doing on VR chat all day. The one exception to this would be if you want to use the IK feet mode, which requires an additional 2 trackers that you wear on your lower leg. I've seen a lot of confusion around distortion from metal, and if the metal distortion correction FluxPose showed off is actually real. As a recap, most of the times I saw interference was if I was touching the trackers pretty much right up against metal. The tracking got a little bit off and felt a little bit floatier. The absolute worst I saw was in my mattress with metal bed springs. In that scenario, the feet trackers became literally useless. What I didn't know then was that the IK feet mode can actually be used to help in that situation. I thought it was just for metal and floors, but it works for metal in general. To use that mode, you have to wear trackers on your feet and your lower leg. The lower leg tracker can be anywhere below your knee, but generally the higher up you wear it, the better. Plus, if you wear it right below your knee, it still works as a knee tracker too, so probably do that. This is one of the only situations where FluxPose requires calibration. To do it, you just lift your leg off the ground and rotate your foot around for a little bit. This has to be done for both legs, but it took me like less than 5 minutes total. You also won't really need to recalibrate it, or at least I don't think you need to, because it keeps working for me. I was also given access to the build of the software that has the MDC implemented. The metal distortion correction is just a little toggle in the software, and it works with any amount of trackers. It drastically improves performance around metal, to the point where I think the IK feet mode is kinda just irrelevant in most scenarios. Both of those modes can actually be combined to further increase performance. Here is what all of that does on my mattress. We are back at my bed that has metal springs in it. So I get on it and sit down, and my feet are touching the floor when they should really be right about where my hands are right now. Clearly something's wrong, clearly we need to fix it. Now the first thing we can do is just go into the settings and click the little tick for metal distortion correction. And wow, my feet are where they should be. Now this is not perfect. Things feel pretty floaty, and then right here near the edge of my bed, you can see it still really isn't a fan of what's going on. For something that's just a free improvement in the software, a little box you check, this isn't bad, and I think in a lot of more mild cases, things will be fine. This bed is just particularly bad. Some of the other testers have mattresses with springs that don't do anything close to what mine does. So I'm going to turn metal distortion correction off. And you can tell it's off. I'm going to go back to the home screen and turn on the IK feet mode. Now this is a lot better. Things are way less floaty and feel a lot more in line with not being near metal at all. But near the edge, it still isn't that big of a fan of what's going on. Interestingly enough, instead of moving inwards, it's moving downwards. And just to make sure you all know, hands, feet, same spot, good. What I can actually do though is turn on metal distortion correction with the IK feet mode. And when I do that, I mean, you can see there was a bit of a change in this. This feels pretty indistinguishable from just not being near metal at all. Now, near the very edge of the bed, you might be able to see it isn't a huge fan of what's going on, but it's way less noticeable, and this feels really good. Me, personally, I don't see a point to running the IK feet mode. The metal distortion correction works really well for what it is in its current state, and you don't need the lower leg trackers, which 2 of those, that's gonna run you what, an extra $100? I also don't like wearing knee trackers below the knee. I don't know, I just find them more comfortable above the knee. So for most people, I would honestly just recommend the metal distortion correction, because you aren't going to be in a lot of scenarios this bad. I'd also like to bring up that metals that aren't magnetic can still cause interference. When the FluxPose devs uploaded their MDC showcase video, they caught a lot of flack for some of the metal there being aluminum. Although most of it there was steel anyway, so I don't see what... Regardless, it's still a good thing to test with aluminum because conductive metals can cause problems. FluxPose doesn't use static magnetic fields. It uses alternating current ones. Changing magnetic fields do this really cool thing with conductive metals called inducing eddy currents. Eddy currents are electrical currents, and electrical currents induce magnetic fields. Magnetic fields that can mess with the ones FluxPose uses for tracking. So yes, non-magnetic but still conductive metals like aluminum or copper can cause problems with FluxPose. In general though, the interference from magnetic metals will be a lot worse. I would like to reiterate though that I don't really think that interference from metal is that big of a problem with the metal distortion correction. It makes trackers usable in situations they were completely unusable in before, so in more mild cases, everything will be perfectly fine. FluxPose can very easily be set up to track gloves, since most of them require you to bring your own tracking anyways. Controllers are a different story, since the vast majority of VR controllers come with their own tracking built in. Tracking that FluxPose may have some advantages over. So is it possible to use FluxPose to track regular controllers? There's two ways actually. First, someone could just make controllers that use FluxPose for tracking. The connector on them supports forwarding input data, so all you would have to do is bring the buttons and battery and board and not have to worry about the wireless communication. Will someone do that? Who knows? That doesn't really matter because there's actually a way I can try right now and has the potential to be used with any controller. Steam VR has a feature built in called tracking overrides, which let you do things like track a controller with a different device. Some of the people who have dev kits have been messing around with it, and lo and behold, someone figured out all the things you need to do, made a mount for index controllers, and wow! Index controllers being tracked without lighthouses! The setup really sucks right now. You need to go in and manually edit your Steam VR config files, and if you mess those up, they completely reset themselves. There also is not a tool to calibrate mounts for controllers, meaning you have to manually figure out all of the offsets. I'm inclined to believe that this mount isn't very great. It really struggles with fast rotations, which is something that wasn't an issue when I was using trackers for Beat Saber. The only thing I can do right now that partially fixes it is something that adds noticeable latency. I would not count on using FluxPose to override the tracking on your existing controllers, unless this is a feature that they start supporting in a more official capacity. A lot of VTubers seem to be pretty excited about FluxPose, but does it work well with VTubing software? Well, unfortunately, it does not support VMC output currently, and I'm not too sure if that's planned or not. Luckily, you can just use it in VTubing software the same way you would Vive 3.0 or Ultimate Tracker. The VMC software itself picks the trackers up the same way it would any other tracker, and then software like Warudo or Vignon just natively supports Steam VR tracking. Now, currently you will still need to wear a VR headset if you want to be moving around in a large space. Eventually, there's going to be support for attaching a FluxPose tracker to a Vive 3.0 or Ultimate, so that you're able to move around in that space without the headset. If you're someone that just VTubes sitting at a desk though, there's actually a way you can set things up to where you can have the beacon stationary, and then all of the trackers can track as long as you're in range of it. I've found this setup to be very usable just sitting at my desk, which, considering that's how quite a lot of people VTube, I could see this being a pretty appealing option. And finally, here's a bunch of other stuff that just didn't fit elsewhere in the video. Will FluxPose have problems with tall people? Unless you're 11 feet tall, probably not. Worst case scenario, I could see some really tall people having problems if they're using controller or glove tracking at the very edges of their arm span. Otherwise, I think pretty much everyone on this planet will be fine with just the full body tracking stuff. Can the vibration motors be used for VR chat haptics? I don't see why not. There's currently at least some functionality to getting vibrations from VR chat, since when you calibrate your full body tracking, it actually vibrates your chest tracker. It's more of a matter of someone figuring out how to set it up on an avatar and maybe something needs to be done in the software. I don't know. That person's not going to be me because I don't really like Unity that much. And also, if you're wondering, the beacon does also include a vibration motor in it. Can the battery life also be viewed in software on top of being able to see it on the hardware? Yeah. I kind of thought that one would be obvious, but you can just see the battery life of a tracker in FluxPose's software, but the data also gets forwarded to Steam VR the same way a Vive tracker's battery life would, so a lot of common overlay programs are also able to pick up on that. I really do like FluxPose. Like, if the metal distortion stuff, which is pretty easily solved in the software, ends up being its biggest problem, that is a damn good piece of VR hardware. The developers are also committed to actually improving things, which unfortunately just isn't the standard in the VR space right now. For me, FluxPose has almost completely replaced Lighthouse trackers. I have one headset that I can't get any double-sided tape to stick to, so I can't get a mount to work. And that's the only reason I have put Lighthouse trackers on within the past month. Keep in mind, FluxPose is a Kickstarter product. They say they're gonna ship whenever. I would love to be proven wrong, but I personally think that most orders won't start getting shipped out until like mid-2027 at the earliest. Don't take that as the gospel, but I mean, just take a look around at what happens in the rest of this industry.